The first principle of wise woman healing that Suzanne Weed brings us, the first principle, do nothing. First, do nothing. Dr. Christian Northrup says, in a wonderful DVD you might like to look at, Menopause and Beyond, she said, perimenopause is a crossroads. One road says grow, the other road says die. We can choose to see the symptoms of perimenopause as the gifts they are, messages from our body and our soul to take us deep within to what lay beneath, above and around, and all that we experience. And remember, as I said, it's all about the interpretation. So we need to learn about what our body needs best to function: nutrition, rest, movement, meditation, lifestyle changes, and perhaps renegotiating our relationships. Susan Weed says, do not expect predictability. She says, when menopausal symptoms are understood as energy movement, a woman feels more at ease. Instead of feeling victimized by her body, the menopausal woman can use her symptoms as a way to pinpoint areas that need special nourishment. She suggests quiet time alone in nature, or sitting in a comfortable chair listening to soothing music. This allows thoughts and feelings to arise and opens the way for the flow of Kundalini, which is what she says the hot flushes are, and that menopause is actually a process of enlightenment. She says, your identity as mother dies. Let yourself break all the rules. Be someone totally different than you thought you could be. Lara Owen and Susan Weed have both written about the woman's sabbatical, a year-long time away during the menopause transition, a time to dedicate to what is the big change, fully immersing ourselves into the experience and allowing it to do its magic. So think of red tent, but red tent at menopause is the sabbatical, the time away when it's just you. And if that can be a weekend, awesome. If it has to be one day, great. A year would be amazing. Imagine if we had perimenopausal camps. Let's do that. Dr. Christian Northrup says, befriending and mindfully surrendering to our most dreaded emotions, we discover the heart's native intelligence. You can handle these emotions. You can handle what comes up, but first you have to be willing to feel it. So you can handle it, but first you have to be willing to feel it. She recommends for women who feel lost in this menopausal time, which is being called in a negative way the empty nester syndrome, that women think about what they were interested in before their menarche. So before those hormones switched into dedication to other, who were you? What were you interested in? What did you like? Before you were enculturated into what being a woman is in our culture, what did you like? What were you into? So for those of you with teenage girls and girls pre-menarche, remember what they're interested in so you can remind them. Or leave it in your diary or something for them. And then for women to pick that interest up again, because that's who you're returning to be. That's you again. The veil lifts. So that's really an important thing to think about in that lost space. So our patriarchal cultural perspective of menopause is easily seen by the dominant beliefs and practices around it. Women say they feel like they become invisible. They walk down the street and nobody looks at them anymore. And women say that to feel visible or acceptable in our culture that holds beauty and desirability in a certain way of looking, that the pressure there to be like that, to look like that, is actually impossible with the aging process. But don't worry, there have been ways developed. You can dye your hair to hide the grey. You can inject Botox to hide the wrinkles. You can have a facelift and plastic surgery to overcome the effects of aging. What pressure, you know, we live in an ageist culture where the ideal is the pre-mother phase of the feminine, the beautiful, dripping Barbie doll, alluring, large-breasted, bum poking out, gorgeous creature. It's impossible to look like her when you're over here. But, you know, the amount of plastic surgery that happens over in this area of heralding the MAGA is huge, because not everyone, the idea is that to be visible and desirable, you have to look like something that you're not anymore. Most likely what your daughters are now. Women aged 45 to 55 are 4 times more likely to have depression than women who have not reached that stage of life. 2/3 of antidepressants and tranquilizers dispensed in America are prescribed to women. Antidepressants are even being used to treat hot flushes. 60% of divorces are initiated by women in their 40s, 50s and 60s, the menopausal years. And our culture, rather than encouraging women to look within and see what lay beneath their physical symptoms or what the emotion is, our culture, like it does with all the other female processes, medicates to suppress the symptoms. We see the same thing happening in menstruation and the same thing happening in childbirth. But rather than masking their symptoms, many women today are reclaiming their menopausal experiences and seeing what lay beneath their symptoms. The main issues we face are around our bodies, our sexuality and libido, our mind, our moods, our beliefs, our fears, and grieving for what now will never be. Everything feels different. Elizabeth Davis says, "Equilibrium is not found by struggling for control, by surrendering to the change and seeing it through. And a trust in the process largely determines the ease of its progression." Sweeping changes can and should occur at this time, she says. In traditional Chinese medicine, menopause is called the second spring, and speaks of that culture's attitude and respect to aging. In traditional Japanese culture, women don't even experience menopausal symptoms. So it's about the culture that's holding the process. Susan Weed writes of the personal inner work of the journey of menopause being about grieving. It has been said that the work of pregnancy is worry. And that speaks to the fact that bringing awareness to your worries when you're pregnancy can show you your fears. And acknowledging your fears and working with them at their root cause can alleviate those fears and what they may bring. Such is the opportunity of grieving at menopause, when we grieve for what may have been, what could have been, what ought to have been, what should have been, and now never will. We grieve our youthful bodies, the babies we didn't have, the blood that will no longer flow. And in this process, we tap into the wounds of our mother line, our mother's experience, our grandmother's experience, our great-grandmother's experience, our red thread, our ancestors, and all women. PMS has been called the collective pain body of women. Perimenopause is just the next extension of that. Human women, pilot whales, and orcas are the only creatures who do menopause. So, things that I know that I'd like to contribute to this conversation. I know that one thing leads to the next. And whatever happens at the beginning of something affects how it will unfold. And that's the same with rites of passage, as I said. So whatever happens at the rite of passage is what configures the next phase. And it's not a sentence. It's what you came for. Held within it, the life story that you're here to live and the experience as it unfolds. It's the opportunity for growth and healing of this lifetime, the soul crafting. Your soul crafting is seen in your rites of passage. So, what my journey has taught me. So now we're going to get really up close and personal. I've learned so much about myself and my enculturation, which is just a fancy way of saying brainwashing, through my desire to alleviate my perimenopausal symptoms. I was busy researching everything I could take. HRT was out of the question, but what about bioidentical hormones or herbs or acupuncture? And then after a while I recognized that that all felt very familiar to me. And I realized I was trying to avoid the symptoms because I didn't want to feel the feelings that lay beneath them, which is an old pattern of mine. I have learned and changed so many things I do over this last 5 years of my journey through perimenopause, and things I never thought I would change, and things I didn't even think I wanted to change. The intelligence of my body and the opportunities of this lifetime presents to me have overtaken my small-minded attachments. I saw at the beginning of my experience 5 or 6 years ago of hot flushes that often I would be thinking some sort of a toxic thought, whether that was a judgment of something or a negative perception of myself, and then this hot flush would come and burn, as if burn that away. I felt like myself was trying to burn off that perception. And like the bush I live in, I know that the greater the forest floor litter, the things that have fallen from the trees because they're no longer needed, the greater the accumulation of the things that you no longer need, the harder, the brighter, the hotter the fire. So that was quite telling. And I have learned that I am ready now to face the things I haven't been ready to face before in my life. One of the ways this has showed up is via my blood pressure. My blood pressure has been calling me for years, and I've basically ignored it. My blood pressure is high due to the imbalance of time I spend in my parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. What I need to do to balance this, and therefore my blood pressure, is to spend more time in the parasympathetic state, which is the relaxed state, as opposed to the sympathetic state, which is the on fight or flight. So what that looks like, as I said before, is to spend more time being than doing. And I know it's time because what I found is something quite amazing. My birth imprint, so the imprint in me from my birth, how I was born, which was a drugged birth where the middle third of my labour, the labour of me, my mother was drugged and was unconscious. And this birth imprint holds the clue for what I now need to do in this rite of passage of menopause to balance my nervous system, to relax myself right down to the level of my capillaries. I need to spend as much time being as doing. The medicine for the ills of my menopause is to consciously live the pattern that was set up at my birth. So, and the how to do that, how to apply that, are the lessons I learned, the gifts of my experiences of giving birth, which were surrender in my first birth, trust in my second birth, and presence in my third experience of giving birth. So have a think, those of you who are deep in it or past it, menopause, finished bleeding, what you could take from your birth imprint, how you were born, what that can bring you to apply to this process of perimenopause. So I offer you that suggestion.
So Jane, you're suggesting to consciously repeat the pattern
As medicine. So
okay.
not to do the opposite. So if you were a forceps delivery, and that shows up in its kind of negative way of like really being so annoyed that people help you when you don't want them to, or you think you need help, like being pulled out, then maybe the healed version of that you apply to the next thing is to actually ask for help and to know that that's okay, for example. So this is a big journey to really understand what's been driving yourself your whole life. How do you know? How do you know what your birth story is? You have to find out your birth story. So if your mother's not around or your father or no one can tell you anymore, kinesiologists can often help you figure out what your birth was by the magic that they do. But you can see what your birth imprint is by how you birth things. One of the things we do at the School of Shamanic Midwifery opening gathering is that everybody births a drum. And in the process of making a drum, they experience all that is in them about birth. So you will be living your birth imprint every moment of every day. It's just about whether you notice it or not. So there's processes that you can help yourself figure out what that is.
What if you were hated? What if you were told that your mother hated you from pregnancy to birth? How do you then reverse that? Is that because you become a more loving person because you're not going to be a hateful person?
What do you do if you were hated from the beginning, not wanted? Well, it's about finding out what the deepest part of that story is and whether it's about belonging or fitting in or whatever. The answers to these questions are what can, you know the answer. And it's deep within you, and you've probably been living it in a healed way or in an unhealed way. So it's not easy and it's not difficult, but it's there. So what you have to do is experience it, feel the feelings that are there, and figure out what lay beneath. What's the theme that you've been living out through your life that shows up as a pattern, and claiming that by having choice about how you are with that. So it's a big question, and it's the life's process. And everybody has this. Everybody's got some big story that is their life journey this time. So how do you do it? You start. What do you start with? The feelings. You feel the feelings. And then let them do their magic and see what comes next. So you can do this on your own, you can do it with support, and you can do it with the moon. You can do it with the seasons, and you can do it with your menstrual cycle if you're still bleeding, because there's certain times, at different times with the flow of energy, where there is the opportunity to let go or the opportunity to give thanks for new things. So it's about flowing with the energy that is and being the gardener of your life and treating yourself as a beautiful part of the earth, and treating that part of the earth that's you with the principles of permaculture, which are create the environment, one of the principles, create the environment for what you want to grow to thrive. Not survive, thrive. And that might mean changing a lot of things and introducing things and letting go of things. So it's a big question, and there's no short, quick answer, and it's your life process. Good answer? Oh, good. Phew. So what I want to recommend now is a daily practice. And as I said, if you put your name on that folder that's going around, I'll send you this by email, so don't feel like you have to take notes. What happens, how you care for yourself through the menopausal rite of passage sets up your old age. So it's really, 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 really important. The list I've got here is adapted from Paul Chek's 6 foundational principles of holistic living. And fundamentally and basically, it's about seeking to balance yin and yang. And these 6 things all need to be balanced. Your thoughts. You need to watch and change as necessary your thoughts and attitudes. Meditation, mindfulness practice. You need to breathe properly. You need to breathe into your belly. You know, we often just at the top of our chests. You need to breathe in your belly. 60% of the detoxing that happens in our bodies happens through our breath. 60%. 30% happens through our skin, 7% through our urine, and 3% through our feces. So how we breathe is detoxing ourselves too. Really important. Hydration. Need to drink enough water. The equation is body weight in kilos times 0.033 is the amount in litres you need to have if you're lying down all day. So somebody like me, I'm around 65 kilos, that equals 2 litres, and that's if I'm lying down all day. Then you have to add more water for the water that you lose because you're sweating or whatever. So it's probably like 3 litres or more if you exercise heaps. So you need to be hydrated. Because if you're not hydrated, you don't work properly. Nutrition. You need to eat according to your primal pattern ratios. You need to eat organic food. It's the only food with nutrition. No processed food. Nothing that doesn't look like what it is. Movement. And quality and variability are important. Movement is nutrition for your body. We sit around so much. We've got to move more. And sleep. You need to be asleep by 10:30. 8 hours is optimal. All physical repair on the body is done between the hours of 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So if you don't sleep then, you miss out on that. And psychological healing is done between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. And a spiritual practice. Journal your experience. Meditate daily. Spend as much time in nature as you can. Do blood prayers and moon prayers. Blood prayers if you're still bleeding. Moon prayers both times if you've stopped bleeding or if you're still bleeding. Honour the seasons. Spend time alone. Notice what arises. Give thanks for it and work with it. Don't ignore it anymore. Spend time with women, sharing your stories and learning from each other. You are not alone. And seek pleasure and joy. Dr. Christian Northrup explains that our brain and body is bathed in a constant supply of nitric oxide, an amazing molecule that determines physical, emotional, spiritual and sexual wellness in menopausal women. It reboots your body. It is the spark of life. So how do you increase your levels of nitric oxide? With uplifting thoughts and positive thinking, by taking pride in yourselves, by understanding that sex and health go hand in hand, and having as many orgasms as you possibly can. By eating nutritious food and getting plenty of exercise. By inviting pleasure into your life all the time. By pampering yourself. By thinking sexy, uplifting and loving thoughts about yourself and others every day. And by associating yourself only with positive people everywhere you can. So, seeking pleasure and joy and having fun. What good medicine. So what's the time? 10 past. So what I'd like to do with the rest of the time we've got here today is to have an inner experience of all of this. So what I was going to do is to drum for you and guide you to call your inner autumn woman, to ask her that she is the she of this place in the timeline of your life. She will exist even if you are not in this stage or if you're past it. She is your inner autumn woman, your inner Marga, your inner matriarch, enchantress, grandmother. And working with the opportunity of this time, you can ask her, what do I need to let go of? Perhaps it's a way of being or a perspective or a dream or a wish, something that now is not going to happen. What do you need to let go of? Perhaps a way of being and thinking about yourself so you can flow more simply with the process of becoming the wise woman version of you. That might be like an attachment to something. And you can ask her what quality you need to call forth or practice you need to begin or continue to be the woman you can be. So for those of you who have finished bleeding, I suggest that you use this opportunity as a bit of a review. Ask your inner autumn woman, what is it that you could let go of, or what quality you need to call up, what thing do you need to grieve away, what thing do you need to bring forth so you can be the woman you've come to be. For those of you deep in the perimenopausal experience, help to negotiate this, like what do I need to let, what dream or wish for my life do I actually need to drop now? What quality do I need to call forth so I can flow here now? And for those of you who are still bleeding and for whom perimenopause is a long way away, play with this idea. You could use it for the now. What do I need to let go of now, and what do I need to call forth now where I am, or in preparation for it? Because if you are over 45, who's over 45 and still bleeding? Over 45 and still bleeding, or 44, blah, 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 okay, you are in perimenopause. As soon as you stop ovulating every cycle, that's when it starts. If you're not a hairy person and you start to grow hairs on your chin, it's started. When your cycle lengths change, it's started. So the messages may come to you as a feeling that you could possibly identify with words. You may hear words, or you may see something that represents what she has to suggest. So, everybody ready to have a go of this?
But Jane, beloved, it's moving my heart. So beautiful to see you here and sharing the wisdom. When I went through menopause, I looked and there were no models. I wish to offer one thing on the spiritual gift of menopause, on the place of the Indigenous perspective, through the fact of having a lover 17 years younger than me as I went through menopause, who was Indigenous. And one morning we woke up and I'm looking at his body so beautiful and smooth and my old feeling Irish and wrinkled skin. And he wakes up and he says, "What are you pulling away from me for?" And I said, "I'm feeling my age." He said, "What? In my culture, it's an honor that you have me. You are my teacher of love." I was blown out. He went to my feet, he sang, he loved. What happened was amazing. The half-hour flushes and the creepy crawly skins and the mood changes and whatever disappeared because I was held in love. And because I saw I was holding myself in judgment. And I researched menopause in Indigenous, Tibetan, Chinese don't have a problem. Youth cultures, America, Scandinavia, big problem. Self-love, self-honoring. The ecstasy that came through in that was amazing. I went to India, was easy with it, came back 6 months later. He found me on a full moon night, don't know how, but he found me. He said, we got our ways. And I said, look, it's gone, the urge, not happening. And he said, we'll see what we can do. And in this place, I rested in, and something happened. I didn't juice up like you do for getting hot urge to merge on the biological mid-cycle feeling. I just opened. And thinking instead sexual urge has gone away, it only comes when love is there. It taught me to be true to love. The spiritual gift of menopause, my darlings, is that it clears you out. You're not just biological. You are just a servant of love. If really well used, it clears all the ghosts and supports you in being your own sweetheart.
Thank you. Bless you, darling. Bless you, bless you, bless you, bless you. Thank you.
See what I mean? Wise woman. So, close your eyes. Just relax your body, letting go of any tension. That tension will have lots of clues in it too about what you need to let go of. Focus on your breath. And take yourself in your mind to a place in nature where you feel safe. It can be real or imaginary. Maybe you're leaning against a big strong tree in a beautiful place by a creek. As you're there now in your mind, call to your inner autumn woman, the she of this place in the timeline of your life. She will exist if you are or are not in this stage. She's approaching you now. You may see her, hear her, or feel her. Just go with whatever's happening for you now. Don't try to make anything happen. Be with what is. Your inner autumn woman showing up. You want to have the opportunity to ask her, what do I need to let go of? Something that now will not ever be. What do I need to let go of so that I can flow more simply through this process? And what quality do I need to call forth or practice? I need to begin to continue on in this process. It may come to you as a feeling, words, or vision. Stay now in this place with your autumn woman, asking the questions. Say thank you. She's so efficient. You already know. Bring it back here now. And whatever feeling you have, whether that's something you need to let go of or some kind of feeling you're having about that experience not being what you wanted, will hold the clue of what it is. Bring this message back. And what I'd like to invite here now, if we could have all the women who are going through perimenopause now to come into the circle, and the women who have finished bleeding, who feel like they want to be part of this as well. So perimenopausal women, please come to the center, make a circle. Look at you beauties. If you could now hold in your mind what it is that is the thing that you want to release. What's the thing that you know is no longer going to happen? What's the thing that you need to grieve about letting go? Yeah. Going to use some very powerful magic here now. Tallulah is going to give all of these, and Sequoia, some stuff called magic paper. So this circle here, we're going to have lots of little circles just gathering around these candles. If you can make little circles now around these candles. Please don't step on those altar pictures. Maybe you can pick them up in the way. Can you just pick that one up? What you need to be conjuring in your mind now is the thing that you're letting go of. Gather around that in a circle. If you can't think about what it is, it can be what no longer serves. Okay. Just make 2 circles here, 1 in here. Have you all got your paper? No. So just make a circle around those candles. Stay in a bit of a sacred space here, what we're co-creating of this big ceremony, letting go. Who needs paper? Who needs it over here? The candle's all lit. Don't put this paper in your mouth. Don't get it wet. Put me left.
How many more need paper?
Does anybody need paper who hasn't got it? Okay, so be thinking now, holding in your mind the thing that you need to let go of. Just turn around here and look at me at this central altar and make sure the people behind you can see. Can everybody see me here? I'm going to show you what's going to happen. What you'll each have the opportunity to do is to attach to this piece of paper the thing that you're letting go of that's no longer going to happen. And then in your little circles around your candle, you'll take turns to do this. You need to get the corner of this in the flame and then let it go. Okay, so watch this. So get in your circle. No, thanks. So now come back into this space where you're aware of what you're about to do with this magic paper. You're going to let go of the thing that will no longer happen, the grieving that you don't have to do because you're going to acknowledge it and consciously let it go. So you don't have to speak it, but if you want to, just one word, and take it now. Start with one person. There we go. Begin. Go around your circle, burning away.
Getting on.
So move your circle through this process, letting go of what will no longer be. Does anybody need another candle? Hold the space for the sisters who are still going. Is everybody done? So now in your circle, just quickly looking at each other, everybody at the same time say the word that represents, the one word that represents the quality that you need to call forth in yourself to negotiate this rite of passage, the way of the healed wise woman. And on the count of 3, everybody say that word loudly. 1, 2, 3. It is said, old Native American Indian quote, "At Menarche, a woman enters her power. In her menstruating years, she practices her power. At menopause, she becomes her power." Let us dance now to this drum. Move your body how you know your body wants to be moved. Come over to the red tent if you need any support later.